Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Com is Hot. We have a very special guest with us. Hey, Cheng.
Hello.
Yay. And you are pretty phenomenal. You do quite a bit. In fact, you've performed at NBC Stand Up for Diversity. You performed at EDC Electric Daisy Carnival and San Francisco Sketchfest. And you're also the producer of Crazy Funny Asians and so much more, including Cosplay Comedy. I mean, the list goes on and on. So, oh my gosh, thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I like the way you put it that way. It sounds like accomplishments. You're not seeing all the lows in between all of those accomplishments. It's great when you listen that way.
We'll get into that later, don't worry. And also, what are your pronouns?
He, him.
Nice. Mine are she, hers. And before we begin with the good stuff, I just want to start by asking you the same question I ask everybody, which is, what is one way you are currently experiencing joy in life?
Well, you caught me at a good time because I'm gonna go on vacation at the end of the month, and we're currently planning it. And sometimes planning a vacation is as much fun as actually going on the vacation. So I'm gonna be in Japan for 3 weeks, starting at the end of the month.
Nice. Is this going to be your first time going to Japan?
Yes, very first time.
Okay, so it's going to be your first time going to Japan. You're going for 3 weeks. Are you going to do anything like specific that you have planned that you're really excited about?
See, I'm gonna take a ninja class, like a 6 hour ninja class where you go in the mountains and stuff. I'm gonna watch a Demon Slayer live action play, eat lots of food. Um, Trying to think of what else. There's a giant Gundam that I want to see. A lot of cool stuff, but mostly just the experience of actually getting to go. It's pretty exciting itself.
Nice. I really hope that everything goes well for you and that you can learn a lot about the culture and really just have fun.
Yeah. You're going
Nice.
to Japan too, right?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'll give you all my itinerary after I'm done.
Yes, I really want to go see the Demon Slayer play.
Yeah. It's in Osaka, so you're in Osaka.
I will take a train. I definitely want to see it. Sounds cool.
Yeah.
So, starting us off with a little bit about who you are. For folks who are just now learning about you for the first time, do you mind providing a little bit of background and just maybe a little bit about your motivation getting into comedy?
Sure. So I am a stand-up comedian. I've been doing comedy for 6 years, but it'll be 7 years this month. I tend to round down. It's just like your age, you're that age. So it'll be 7 years in a few days, really. I produce a few shows like the some that you mentioned, like Crazy Funny Asians and Cosplay Comedy, which are currently running. Ran a couple of shows in the past that are no longer running, but someday I'll get them back on the ground when I have some more time. And so I'm a stand-up comedian. I sometimes write satire for a website called the Lunar Times, which is kind of like The Onion, but for Asian Americans. And I've done some guest lectures at a couple other colleges like St. Mary's and Mills. So that is my comedy career. And by daytime, I'm a data analyst for a nonprofit that serves homeless youth. I don't know if I should mention my day job here, but yeah, that's my day life and that's my life.
I mean, you have your hands full. That is a lot.
Yeah, kind of.
I,
It's probably more than I can actually handle, but I have a lot of help, so
That's awesome. Having support in community is really important. And also, I think I just want to address and call attention to the fact that you're helping bringing joy to people's lives through comedy. And I think we need that now more than ever.
like to think so. Yeah, and that really helps to hear and to know and to be reminded of because there's so much in comedy. I mean, like doing comedy is mostly failure, and most of the time it's kind of like a batting average. Like if you get it over a certain percentage, then that's good. So it's good to know that at least I made a few people's day a little bit better through comedy. Yeah.
That is such an awesome perspective and very real. I
Yeah.
know that I've seen you perform. I attended one of the Crazy Funny Asian shows that you host and produce here in the Bay Area. And my partner who I was with, who is Chinese American, was like
Mhm.
rolling laughing
Oh,
and
good.
loved it, had so much fun. And I also thought the show was great, tons of
Great.
laughs. So I think you're doing really, really good work. And
Oh, thank you.
you're giving people like an opportunity and a space to laugh. And
Yeah.
I think it's hard for a lot of people these days. So,
Yeah. Appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah. I just want to touch back a little bit on maybe like your motivation.
Oh, sure.
Like younger you, how did you get into comedy?
Well, I've always wanted to do comedy, but I never really had the guts to do it because I was just so afraid of bombing and doing public speaking and that sort of stuff. Same reason a lot of people want to do comedy but never actually get into it. But then I went through a really bad breakup and I kind of just needed the kick in the pants and I had just turned 30 and I was like, well, I really just need to do something crazy and different with my life. So I got up on stage at an open mic and that's pretty much it. I just kept doing it. I haven't really taken any breaks. I just kept doing comedy since then.
Nice.
Yeah,
So, with comedy, you mentioned earlier that you can experience a lot of failure.
right. Yeah.
So, would you say that entering the field of comedy is kind of like an uphill battle?
Yeah, except there's no top of the hill. There's no spot where I think it's more like going hiking through a range, not really just climbing a mountain, but just there's a lot of ups and a lot of downs and a lot of switchbacks. And sometimes you'll see a river, sometimes you'll see a waterfall, sometimes you sprain your ankle and have to stop. Or it's the analogy of just like starting at the bottom isn't always accurate because when I started, I was a lot better than everybody in the folks that I started with, and a lot of them quit. And so I was relying a lot on being a good performer, but I wasn't a very creative or good writer. And then as the more I got into it and the more that I was around much better comedians, I realized, oh, I'm not that good. So, maybe I started high, but then it went low and then it goes back high again, then it goes back low. So it's very bipolar, the comedy career trajectory. So
Like the emotional journey?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've definitely heard that. I've heard that it's a very tough industry and you have to have really thick skin to be able to kind of pursue it and keep at it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you mentioned is that it's kind of like going on a hike, and maybe when you're at the lows, it's a moment for you to kind of reflect and be real with yourself and kind of maybe look at your writing and look at other people's and see what they're doing. So can you talk a little bit about that? I think for people who are hearing about this for the first time, some people might not realize that there's so much that goes into a show,
Right.
that with the creative process, there's like formulas, do you want to just share a little bit more about that?
Sure. So when writing material, I think there's probably a misconception that there's comedy prodigies or something like that, or people that are just naturally good at it because there's funny people everywhere. I mean, you can spend 5 minutes on the internet and start laughing at other people's jokes. And stand-up comedians are not the funniest people in the world. And I'm not funny off stage at all. I know plenty of people that are funnier off stage than I am. But the thing about comedy is it's very much a marathon and there's not really shortcuts. You really have to work hard at it. So when you see somebody who's really good, just know that they've worked really hard on that material and they've rehearsed it millions of times and they've also cut it down. It might have not been funny at one point. It might be a 5 or 6 year old bit that wasn't funny, but then it came back later on and they figured out a way to make it funny. So that's all. It's just time. And there's not, I think when you see a lot of folks that are fast risers, you don't really see how much work they've put into it on the back end. And I don't think they would want you to see how much work they put into it. I certainly don't.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, this is also new information for me. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if you were trying to be a professional basketball player, you would practice basketball for 6 hours a day or something like that, right? And you practice your whole life. The comedians, we only get 3 to 5 minutes at a time to practice. So it takes a lot more years to get good and to own your craft there.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
We're just limited.
mm. Would you say because those 3 to 5 minutes is when you have access to like an audience to give you that real feedback?
3 to 5 minutes is what you usually get at an open mic, which
Mm,
is where we practice our new bits and that sort of stuff. And getting an audience, that's the tricky part. As
mm.
not every, I mean, most people don't want to see a comedian that they've never heard of before. So I think in comedy, and this is far from me, but I know that if you're in any sort of an entertainer, and maybe in business too, in other fields, but people really want to help you when you're like 10% away from making it, but that other 90%, it's really hard to find support. So I'm very grateful for everybody that comes to one of my shows, that has ever came to any one of my shows, because nobody knows who I am. And you're just taking a chance and saying, well, maybe this local comic is good. Maybe they're not. And so, yeah.
That sounds like a really, I feel like you're being very like humble.
Oh,
Like
no, no. I
it's
get it.
cool.
Like, I didn't go to local comedy shows that often before I started doing comedy, because I had the same mindset. I'm like, I don't know if they're funny or not. It's going to be really weird if they're not funny. And sometimes it's not funny. So it's
Yeah,
totally warranted. Yeah. And it's
yeah,
awkward for everyone. So yeah.
that's valid. I feel like I might be like just I love comedy. And so I'm like the maybe outlier who's like, I don't know who's performing, but I just want to
Yeah. Yeah.
go.
I appreciate that. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, of
Two
course.
or three times I think it's been.
That's
So
how I found out
yeah.
about the shows you produce. Do you mind sharing just a little bit about that? So the show that I specifically saw was the production Crazy Funny Asians.
Sure.
And I'm guessing that's kind of a spinoff of the movie.
Yes, we really capitalized off that movie. There's a few variations. There's like crazy woke Asians, crazy hilarious Asians. There's a lot of them. So I think it's a 4-year-old movie now. So we're still capitalizing off of a 4-year-old movie. That show, actually, it's not my idea. It was never mine. It was started by a production group called Hella Funny, which puts on a bunch of dope shows around the Bay Area. You can check funny.com or on SF Funcheap if you're ever around there. They put on cool shows, bars, at a strip club, at a weed dispensary, all sorts of places. So when the movie came out, they booked an all Asian lineup, and it was a hit. And the funny thing is that at the time, none of them were Asian. They just were like, oh, let's do an Asian show because this movie's coming out. But it kept going, and know, a year later, it was still popping because everybody, I guess, because it's the Bay Area and everyone wanted to see Asian comics. I was on the show a couple of times, and eventually I took over the show. I think during the pandemic, we moved the show to Zoom, and we had it every Friday night. And that's when I took over as running the Zoom show. When we brought it back live, they gave it to me entirely. So just want to be clear, it wasn't my idea. I'm just I think I was the default hire because I'm Asian, because they were like, maybe we should have an Asian running this show. So I'm happy. I'm fine with it. But yeah, every single week, every single show, we have a new, well, not entirely. We have a lot of repeats, but it's a lineup of Asian comics around the Bay. Sometimes we get a lot of out of towners dropping in as well. So okay.
Nice. The reason I also wanted to bring this up, and thank you for clarifying that, kind of
Yeah.
giving credit where credit's due and explaining that background of how it kind of started and got to where it is now and your role in it. I feel like there's such a lack of representation in any industry, like you name it, and I usually that's like one of the things I think about
Mm-hmm.
is just lack of representation. And so I wonder if this is almost sticking around and is still popular because there's like a desire for it. There's a need for it. There is like a lack of representation in it. Like I don't know much about the world of comedy, but I do know that growing up most comics I saw were all white
Yeah, yeah,
and typically like white men.
yeah, yeah.
So would you like to share a little bit about your experience being you and kind of taking that role and kind of
Sure.
also emerging like race and culture into comedy?
Yeah, I think for the longest time, comedy, like stand-up comedy, if you're excluding what you see on TV, because that's very different than what you do when you see a club, but it's stand-up comedy rooms were mostly divided into black rooms or white rooms, and that's audiences. Black audiences go to the black rooms, white audiences go to the white rooms. And then as things evolved, there were that weren't black or white that would break through, like George Lopez or Gabriel Iglesias. And, in I think in the 90s, there was Margaret Cho. So there were these followings of different ethnicities, but there weren't really rooms. And I don't know if there still are or not. I think what part of the Bay Area, one that this works here, and I don't think it probably wouldn't work everywhere else, but one, because it is very diverse and there's a lot of Asians here who want to see jokes about being Asian that you can't see, that you might be able to see at a comedy club or a black room or a white room if one of those comics is there. But maybe if you want an entire show of that, you would have to come and see an all Asian lineup. And so we provide that every week. And so I think there's not really many in the whole country that have like, there's an Asian room. We have a fairly new concept that we created, and not really with the intention of diversity or representation or anything like that. It was just like, oh, this is a really fun idea. Get our friends some stage time. And and I think, I'm pretty sure we're the only one in the country, at least, that has like the only Asian room, because I was in New York back in May for an Asian comedy festival. And it was, of course, naturally a primarily Asian audience, vast majority, like 200 or something in a room, and the Asian comic's like, oh my God, is this how a white comic feels when they're in the room full of white people, or a black comic feels when they're in a room full of black people? Like, you don't have to explain your jokes, you don't have to, you can tell all the fun inside jokes that maybe a white audience wouldn't understand. And I'm like, oh, I get to do that every week because I have this Asian room. So I do think it's very unique and something really specific to the Bay Area. It probably won't stay like that forever. I would hope that every major city would have an Asian room or a Latino room or something like that. And find the comedy that fits what you want to see. So yes, in a nutshell, representation is growing, especially within the local comedy scenes. I don't know if it's growing with like mass media. There's still like, as far as Asians in stand up, it's still like pretty small. I think the really big names are like Sheng Wang and Ali Wong, of course. Maybe, I know I have a couple friends that I think are going to really break through in the next couple of years and be that big star. Who knows? Who knows? But locally, I think, yeah, we've brought something that hasn't been done, but like an actual room, an establishment. There have been a lot of one-off shows of like Asian lineups everywhere, but we're the only one that I think does it weekly. So it's kind of nice. Yeah.
I I love this. I think like my whole life I've been an advocate for all like pretty much all in every group that's marginalized or that has a lack of representation in this country in the US. And so I love this. Like, and thank you so much for sharing and being honest and also giving some historical context just by and also explaining kind of what these rooms are and what they mean and what they can feel like for performers and also audience members.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely necessary. I'm a huge advocate, and I think it's really life-changing for people to be able to show up to a space and feel like they're represented or feel like connected with
Yeah.
the performer or with even the material. So
Yeah,
I
and to be fair, comedy audiences for a long time were, the majority of them were white men, which I think is why white men, well, there's probably a whole lot of reasons, but like maybe that's why they were the most represented, is because that was the audience. But with the advent of new forms of media, things have shifted. And I think I realized this before I started comedy. I went and saw Eliza Schlesinger, and she really appealed to this millennial white woman kind of thing. And I'd never been to a comedy show like that where the vast majority of the audience were women, just in general, but not just specifically women, but like a really specific age range and a very specific race. They were all white and all young. And but anyways, that was when I realized, like, comedy can be different things for different people. And if you're a specific kind of comedian, you don't have to, you can find your audience. So that's what I try to do.
I think that's awesome. And I think I definitely saw the trend of a lot of millennial white women like flocking to her as a
Yeah,
comedian. I was also one of those people that was like, "Oh, she's really funny. I like
she's
her."
great. Yeah.
I feel like it's a good feeling to just feel like you have someone who's joking about things that might stress you out on regularly or normally kind of be stressful, but there's someone who gets it, who gets your experience and who can find humor in it. So I think comedy is a total art form. I think it's a beautiful craft that we have. There was one thing that you mentioned, and because we've acknowledged that you are Asian and that this is a very specific experience for a lot of communities, but there's also a lack of like Asian comedians. I mean, it's not like there's like a ton we can name versus like a ton of white guys or something. So I'm wondering if, although there is a change and more growing representation, I'm wondering if you maybe think that there's something to do with that in terms of like it not really being encouraged in families or like culturally. So for myself, as an example, I'm Middle Eastern, and there's definitely some stereotypes, generalizations. One being my family, my entire family would probably never be supportive of me pursuing something like comedy. They were very, you need to get this type of job, doctor, lawyer, teacher,
Hmm.
whatever, because it's like immigrants. They're worried about job stability, all the things, first generation. And so I'm wondering if maybe you want to share your thoughts on that, just from your perspective.
Sure. I don't know. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's definitely something that's, like the Asian stereotypes are pretty true, like you, or, our parents want us to be doctors and lawyers and engineers. I don't know if that's really, I mean, what parent would want their kid to be rich and successful? I will say that that like stand-up comedy specifically is something that's a really hard concept to. I don't even like. I'm Cambodian, but I don't even know the Cambodian word for stand-up comedy. I had to ask my dad a few days ago, and I still don't. I already forgot what the word is. So, like, I think the concept of stand-up comedy is not a foreign is not a foreign concept, but stand-up it is. Of course
Mm,
our parents see funny movies and that sort of stuff, but it's acted out, it's plays. Um, Sometimes it's music, but just standing up and telling jokes. Like my mom still calls it my talk shows. She's like, "Oh, you're going to do your talk shows tonight?" So there's the pushback in that it's really hard to explain what I do. But to be honest, I have trouble explaining what I do, like my day job, like being a data analyst for a homeless nonprofit, like a nonprofit that serves homeless people. Just saying that is hard to say because sometimes they'll just say homeless shelter. But anyways, but that's the point. Is like sometimes it's just really hard for a child of an immigrant to explain what they're doing to their parents. Like,
mm,
like if my parents had to explain what I did, both my day job and my night job, they'd probably have a really tough time.
mm,
So that's a struggle. The base level struggle is like explaining what stand-up comedy is. And then the other pushback that I got a lot when I first started from my family is how much time I was spending because I would spend late nights in shady places in the Bay Area doing open mics trying to get good. And they didn't really understand. They were like, well, why don't you just do it on the weekends? Or I'm like, because I have to get good. Like I don't get good by doing it just on Fridays and Saturdays. I get good by doing it 5, 6 times a week, getting up on stage as much as possible because I have to keep practicing. And for me personally, I write best when I'm on stage. Like that's when I come up with my fun, the best tags. Tags are like little jokes that you can add on. But I do my best writing when I'm on stage with a microphone. And it really sucks because some people can just sit down, write, and they're good. I can't do that. I actually have to be on stage to write. Um, Different people are different. So it's hard to explain the amount of dedication it takes to a family, especially since, but to be fair, I think my situation is a little bit different and maybe it's different for, everybody else, another person, but I started comedy really late after I had gotten my education, after I had started a career. And so it wasn't like I was in college dropping out. And I do know comedians, Asian comedians that had that struggle that I didn't have. But to be fair, they're like way more successful than I am in comedy. So, it's a sacrifice, but I didn't have it that bad, I don't think. I know other people that had it a lot worse. But anyways, I hope that explained the struggle or the barriers, just explaining what it is and then explaining why I need to take so much time to do this.
It definitely covered some of the barriers and challenges that immigrants and children of immigrants can experience and face. Really love that you kind of broadened it into that not just being an issue like with only comedy, but that can be an issue with any part of life,
Yeah.
day job or night job. Do you mind if I ask, so are the parents on board with it? Are they pretty supportive?
I think now they are after they actually saw me on stage and saw that I'm good at it. It's just nice to do something that you're good at. And that's mostly the reason I keep doing comedy is because I'm good at it. And I don't I don't really expect to be rich and famous doing this for a lot of reasons, mostly just because it's really, way out there. But now that they've seen me, I think they're in a different place with it. But also, I don't spend as much of my weekdays doing it because I'm better at it. And now I get more stage time and I can restrict it to weekends and I can turn down shows now. I don't have to take every single gig. I think one time I drove like 2 hours on a Tuesday night. I got paid $2 and a bag of weed. I drove back that same night and then I went to work in the morning. And I would never do that now. Like there's no way I would do that. But when I first started, I was hungry. So yeah.
Can I just clarify that they paid you $2 cash and a bag of weed?
Yes. Yes.
That's intense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it was out in Waterloo, California, which if you don't know where that is, I didn't know where it was either. I was way out there.
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
Yeah.
What the heck? That is intense. And I think that kind of highlights and shows people who might be listening in that this is not just a career you can kind of hop into and get a paycheck. Like
Oh, sometimes you won't get paid at all. You really have to do it because you love it. And maybe that's one reason. I don't know why people get into comedy. I certainly know why they quit. So, but that's one reason why I think a lot of people quit. It's just because first couple years are really, really hard,
mm,
struggling to get stage time, making new friends, that sort of stuff. So,
mm.
yeah,
Oh, let's talk about that for a second. Would you say
sure.
that because you've been in the Bay for a hot minute and putting on shows, and I'm assuming networking with other performers to book them,
Mm,
have you been able to kind of create some good friendships and good connections?
yeah, probably too many at this point. I don't have any regular friends. All my friends are comics, which is a problem because if I ever decided to quit, I would have no social circle other than, well, I would borrow my girlfriend's friends, which is like, that is my social circle now as comedians. And I've lost touch with a lot of my friends and I'm trying to reconnect now. Like actually throughout this last week, I've been texting some of my old friends trying to meet up and stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty much taken over my life, including my social life. But I have a lot of friends here, but I think over the pandemic, what cool part of it is that because we were doing these Zoom shows, I made a lot of friends that I've only met on screen. And they'll, over the past, since things have opened up and I've been traveling more, I got to meet them in person. I got to put them on my shows. I get to go to those places and do their shows. So my network expanded more since we since I was doing Zoom shows. So that's pretty fun. Got friends everywhere now. Yeah,
I mean, that sounds really awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Nice. What would you say if someone wanted to get into comedy, if they wanted to start? What would be some tips you might offer someone who's considering this or thinking, oh, geez, I might want to do this?
You just do it. There's nothing that I can really say. I mean, I could tell you where to find the open mics if you're in the Bay Area. You can join Bay Area Comedy Network on Facebook, and they list open mics every day. So you just sign up and you get up there. But there's nothing really that I can tell you, and I don't think anybody. I think every comedian will tell you the same thing. It's like just get up there and do it on stage,
Mm,
and it might suck. In fact, it's most likely going to suck. You'll probably get up there in an open mic. Nobody will listen to you. It'll be other comedians. Nobody's going to talk to you, and it'll be painful. But that's just how you get into comedy is you just get up there and do it. Yeah,
whoa.
yeah. That's
Oh,
what all of us did when we started. We just got up there and did it. Yeah,
nice. Thanks for keeping it real.
yeah.
I appreciate that.
I'm trying to not make this too depressing. I'm trying to highlight some of the positive things of comedy too. So yeah,
Absolutely. But I think part of the beauty of this conversation, in my perspective, is that there's a side to it that I think a lot of people may not realize or be aware of. And I feel very good talking about it and helping people kind of understand and know that it's not just all people getting Netflix specials overnight. Like it's not just
no,
uh,
it's a grind. Yeah, especially now. I'm not good at the business aspect of comedy. I'm just good at getting up on stage and telling jokes. I'm not good at social. I have no social media presence. I just now started posting my clips. I was always paranoid people were going to steal my material, so I never posted clips. But I just now started like a week ago. So I don't know how to get big or famous or successful doing this. I
mm,
just know how to tell jokes. That's it.
mm, mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, nowadays everything is so social media driven. It's almost like,
yeah. And that's not just comedy. You have to like if you're a landscaper, you have to have a TikTok. It's kind of amazing. Like everybody has to be good. Everybody has to know how to edit videos or photos or know how to write catchy stuff and know how to use clickbait and yeah.
it,
And I know it's not something that that's not a problem that is unique to our industry. That's what I know.
mm. But you're calling attention to something that I've also observed. I'm a little bit older, and in my like younger years, people didn't have to rely on being social media savvy or even social media to be successful.
Right.
And now I feel that's the number one way people are shifting to, and I'm not there.
Same.
I like to keep a lot of my life more private, and it's a huge cultural shift.
Yeah. And I also don't enjoy it. I don't like editing videos and it doesn't make me happier to get more likes or shares or views or whatever. It only makes me sad when I don't. So it's just a net negative every single time. Oh, sorry. I'm being way too negative on this podcast. I'm just complaining at this
No,
point.
no, I think that I'm equally just calling attention to something that's not the most cool thing that I've noticed as like a cultural shift. And
Yeah.
okay for us to not really be super obsessed with social media. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people aren't.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a stereotype of millennials is that we're obsessed with it, but a lot of us are just here because we have to. So
That's real. Oh my God, like doing this podcast.
exactly.
Oh no, we gave in. Ugh. Moving us forward, are there any current projects that you're working on or any kind of cool things that you're looking forward to that you want to share?
So Crazy Funny Asians is every Sunday at Neck of the Woods in San Francisco. I run a show called Cosplay Comedy where we do comedy in cosplay in character. And that is at the Guild House in San Jose once a quarter. And we're also going to be in Sketchfest 2023 doing that show. And that's kind of the same motivation that I have for Crazy Funny Asians, is like telling these really niche, fun, quirky jokes that I don't get to tell everywhere else. So
Mm.
for our nerds and our geeks, I'm a nerd. I don't know if I have to say that really. You could just look at me and be like, yeah, he's a nerdy guy. He's into anime and video game stuff. So that show's coming up early 2023, and I just shot a special, which I will drop someday. It's ready to go. I just haven't figured out when I'm gonna drop it. But it's a special that I shot at MacWest, which you attended. Thank you very much. It's the first special shot at a gaming convention, so I'm doing all my nerdy material about anime and video games and all the deep cuts. Yeah,
I love that stuff. As a fellow nerd, love it.
great, great,
So,
great.
yeah, I'm glad that you're part of that and doing it and helping people like myself just be able to laugh about inside jokes about nerdy stuff like
Yeah.
that I used to get bullied about in high school for liking.
Yeah, all the convention shows are my favorite to do. Those still get me excited about doing comedy.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. What would you say one of the ways is that you kind of navigate and manage your mental health as a comedian? And this is a very personal question.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than getting, super into it like a therapy session, what would be just like maybe one of the strategies or ways that you kind of manage those like lows that comedians kind of experience? And you can share it in kind of a safer way that's kind of general, or you could make it really personal and you can also decline to answer because I know this is like a serious
Okay.
question.
Not at all. So I'll be honest. I don't know if I'm good at managing my emotions because there's the majority of comedy is bombing, it's sitting around waiting for your turn to go up, like 30 comedians at an open mic so you can just practice a little bit. It's fighting with other comics. I don't like any of the stuff in comedy that goes on off stage. I mostly just enjoy being on stage and telling jokes and getting folks to laugh. And like I said, I don't really enjoy doing social media and that sort of stuff. So I'll be honest, I'm not great at managing my mental health when it comes to comedy. I do let it get me down. I do let it affect me, and I kind of just have the waves. I don't tell myself, well, it's gonna get better, but it just does. I like eventually I'm gonna have something to be proud of, or a set that I really enjoy, or something that I like. I I'm not great at staying optimistic about it, but it just happens by itself. Like eventually I'm gonna kill on stage, even if it just bombs. I go through streaks too, and the same way is also like when I'm doing really well, I know that eventually I'm gonna bomb. It's coming. There's no way to avoid it. So it's more about endurance than anything else, than management, just being able to ride those waves. Some things that just kind of definitely reframe my comedy or the way I think about it throughout the pandemic, because there were, with Crazy Funny Asians and everything, I never sought out to be the Asian comic, but throughout the pandemic and all the racism we faced, and then I had this show called Crazy Funny Asians. It felt like I had a platform, and it was also a pandemic, and I was talking to these strangers on my screen and this sort of stuff like that. I connected in a different way and changed a lot of not only my material and my act, but how I connect with the audience. And so I think that there are small accomplishments that I can't put on a paycheck. I can't list as a credit. I didn't get a TV deal or anything, but like a few people from our Zoom show have been to our live show, and they told me that I helped them get through the pandemic. And that is more valuable to me than any TV credit or any amount of money that I could get or any level of prestige. So those little things like that really help keep me going. I did Anime Expo in July, and I got everybody to do like 1,000 people to do a group Kamehameha. And it was really fun. It was nerdy, and a lot of people aren't going to get it or know why that's awesome. But that little moment right there, like, warms my heart, and that's when I feel like I'm doing a little bit more than just telling jokes. So things like that, sometimes I'll just revisit it or watch the videos or reread those messages that I got for support, and that helps keep me going through comedy. I listen to a lot of BTS. So that's I have a whole like 8 minutes talking about BTS because they make me feel good about myself too. So yeah, those are some things. And one thing I'm trying out new in comedy is I know a lot of people are scared to sit in the front row because they'll get roasted, which is totally true, totally accurate. You probably will, even if they even if they say you're not gonna get roasted, don't worry. They're probably lying. Somebody's gonna roast you. One thing I've just been trying to do is instead of roasting the front row, I've been complimenting them, but trying to make it funny. It doesn't always work out. It's brand new, but just trying new things, like keeping comedy fresh for myself really helps. I'm tired of telling some of my same old jokes, so just trying to do more good than bad with comedy helps me continue and manage my mental health, I think. But again, I'm not that great at it, so maybe there's something else that I need to be doing.
I mean, oh my gosh, it sounds like you are doing a lot. Like, just touching back on connecting with fellow people in your community during a time where there was so much animosity and hate, like, and giving
Yeah.
them a space to feel safe and valid and just like happy, and them communicating that with you, that's huge.
Yeah,
Like,
thanks.
from my outsider perspective, that is like my heart was filled with love just hearing
Oh,
that. And so I'm so grateful that you were able to do that and provide that space for people, especially because we know the Bay Area got
yeah,
really bad.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then moving forward, you're like showing up, you're putting on these special events for, the fellow nerds who would really appreciate it and like finally feel like they have a moment to just like fit in and do something really fun and
I
bringing
hope so.
strangers
Yeah,
together with like a similar cool goal, even if it's like nerdy.
yeah. It's very nerdy. It is,
Love it.
even for me, it's pretty nerdy. So
But like also there's so much beauty in you kind of being open to refreshing your comedic style and trying new things. I think that also shows, oh, for me, it shows that you're not just like, stuck doing your thing. You're like wanting to switch things up, try new stuff, try to bring positivity. Like that's
yeah, I'm trying. I don't know if it's working or not. I get a few laughs here and there. Maybe I'll get more laughs if I just roasted my front row instead. But I think with comedy, especially with stand up, we tend to think like this is what stand up is. You get up and you talk, and then if you bring music, that's not really stand up anymore. But we wouldn't, or if you play a guitar or something like that, or you use a puppet or you use props, it's like, oh, that's not stand up anymore. And I think comedians get trapped in this culture of like, this is what comedy is, this is what stand up comedy is. But we wouldn't do that with music. If I told you, well, music is supposed to be about this, you would say, well, no, you can make music. You can teach a kid the alphabet with music. You can sing happy birthday. Music doesn't have those kind of limitations. I don't know why in comedy we do. So try to break through. Because just try new things and they might be gimmicky and they might not be respected by other comedians, and they might not even be funny, but a lot of comedy is surprisingly not funny. If you've been to enough open mics, like I have or other comedians have, you realize like the majority of comedy is actually not funny. It's just work. So just trying to work new things. Yeah. Anyways, sorry, I'm rambling now.
No, but it's fun. And it's fun to hear about you speak about this, especially because like this is like I'm not familiar with it. So for me, this is like brand new insight into this whole world of comedy. And I think a lot of people listening may really appreciate you being so open about it. I certainly am. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, of course. I think this is a good segue into kind of our closing, which is just an opportunity for you to go back and edit anything that we discussed earlier, or maybe there's something that you want to expand on, or maybe there's something that I didn't bring up or that we didn't get to talk about that you were kind of hoping to talk about.
I think I kind of rambled throughout this whole thing, and it's not super organized, and I don't know if I answered all the questions.
Oh, no, no, no. You absolutely did. You were phenomenal. You were very
Mm,
open. For me, it was not rambling at all.
okay, good.
As someone who teaches communication, that was not rambling. That was just
Okay, great.
sharing. And I feel like you shared really good insights and honest experiences. So I want to again thank you for being willing and open to do that.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah. Now, how can people get a hold of you? Do you want them to find you on social media?
Sure. I am at K Cheng, LOL, KCHENG, LOL on all the social medias. So Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I don't know if I guess, I guess I'm still at Twitter. LinkedIn, if I'm K Cheng on LinkedIn, if you want to connect with me there, and on Facebook. And then my website is kcheng.lol.
Awesome. Thank you so, so, so much for doing this and for helping people better understand the experience of a stand-up comedian.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yay. Okay.